So thanks for coming tonight, everyone. I'm going to introduce you to Bob Berdelle from Enterprise Holdings. Bob has been a friend of mine for a long time, not just while I've been at Eastern Illinois University. Even prior to that, he and I came to career fairs together for different companies. I was with a different company. Bob's been with Enterprise. And I think you're going to find that Bob not only has been a real friend to Eastern, and that will come out in his story, but I want to tell you that he's been available anytime I've asked him to do something, whether it's mock interviews, participate in anything, especially sessions like this where he's giving up another hour of his evening after a long day. I think you're going to find that Bob has a very refreshingly honest and direct way of speaking, and he's going to tell you just like it is. So if you have questions, he's open for everything. Please ask him away and expect an honest answer from him. So without delaying any further, Bob, it's all yours.
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone. Couple things before we start. Please feel free to talk at any time. Interrupt me if you have a question. I'm used to that. My wife interrupts me all the time. Or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, feel free to use the chat bar and put a question in the chat, and I'll answer it as best as I possibly can. Kind of the itinerary today. As John said, I'm the recruiting manager, the talent manager with Enterprise Holdings in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. I'm going to talk about Enterprise for about 10 minutes, give you an idea of kind of who we are as an organization, the opportunities that are available. I'll then spend about 5 minutes kind of going over my story, kind of how I got to Enterprise coming from the University of Illinois and kind of my matriculation of success throughout my career. And then we're going to open it up to questions right away. And I want to be very clear. This is not just a session about me and my company. I'm happy to answer as many and all questions you have about my organization. But if you have any other questions with regard to the career process, you want to know about how a company has reacted in COVID times, or really anything else that's on your mind, I would tell you there's no stupid questions. There are stupid questions, and I'll tell you if it's stupid, but I'll still answer it. I promise you that. All right. So with that said, like I said, Bob Berdelle, the recruiting manager with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Enterprise Holdings, the parent company in the city of Chicago and the surrounding area. For those who don't know who Enterprise Holdings are, we are the world's largest rental car or transportation leader, about 4.5 times the size of anyone else in the world. We are a company that started 63 years ago in the basement of a car dealership in St. Louis, Missouri. Our founder, Jack Taylor, identified a segment of the market that wasn't yet created. He identified that when people lost their vehicles, they had an accident, their car broke down, stolen, something like that, they needed another vehicle. So he bought 7 vehicles, asked for and was granted a favor of some space in the basement of a car dealership, and started what has become a $26 billion, 110,000 employee behemoth. We are a unique organization in that every single person throughout our 63 years has started in the exact same position, has started within our management trainee program or the management trainee internship, and has grown from there. We have a very utopian philosophy of business where people need to learn how to run the business while they're actually running the business. I think we've all been in a job in high school or college where you had a new assistant manager or branch manager that didn't know what the heck they were doing. It doesn't happen at Enterprise. Everyone starts from the ground up and works their way up the ladder based on their performance within the organization. So what does that actually mean? Each and every person in Enterprise starts in an Enterprise branch location close to home. So whether you're from the Chicagoland area, the St. Louis area, or anywhere in between, you start in an Enterprise branch. A typical Enterprise branch has about a 4 to 8 person management staff. That means there's always a singular branch manager, an assistant branch manager or 2, and then a few trainees at different points in their early career. If you did want and gain the internship, you would be the only intern over the summer at your branch location. With that said, it's not one person dictating, hey, John, you do this today. Henry, you do that. I'm going to do this. It's something like that. It is one functioning unit. It is one management team working and breathing together, doing whatever it takes to successfully run a business. Sales and marketing, advertising, customer service, logistics, analytics, anything you can think of, anything you've ever done in terms of the operation of a business is what we do. Things you can't think of, things you've never experienced is absolutely what we do. It is fast-paced, it is high energy, and it is yours, because even as a trainee or as an intern, and then as you would grow throughout a career, you'll control the environments that you're in, the events that go on around you, the decisions that are to be made, they're always yours to make. When I say it's everything, I mean it runs the entire gamut of job duty. On one end of the business, you're going to deal with presidents of different companies, leaders of organizations. You'll deal with every intricacy and interworking of our business on a daily basis. At the very same time, you're going to deal with our customers that walk through the doors each and every day. Occasionally, you'll wash your car or pick up a customer. It's not some grunt work we have you do. We're not trying to treat you like the new person or anything like that. Simply, Enterprise is a company of ownership. And what that means to us is very simple. We are a privately held firm. As such, we give a little piece of our company to each and every one of our employees. Therefore, if you own something, even if it's the tiniest sliver of something, I hope to God you're going to do whatever it takes to make it the best and brightest out there. And that's why you do everything in Enterprise, because it truly is yours. Now, like I said, everyone starts entry level. In our organization, you're judged based on what you do for us. We don't care about where you went to school, what you look like, who you know. We care about how hard you work, how well you perform, and the combination of those two variables. Hence, 100% of our promotions, without exception, emanate from within our own ranks. So even though you'll start entry level in this monstrous company, legitimately, you'll go as far as you want, as fast as you want, solely based on you. Now, a career track at Enterprise will start you within the management program. People will all start within this management trainee position, typically matriculating from a management trainee to an assistant manager to a branch manager. You're looking at about a 2 to 4 year window, depending on your performance. Once you kind of become fluent in the language of our business, from there, you'll have the opportunity to kind of pick and choose your path. We're a company that's filled with every single type of business, different divisions of the organization, the entire back end of our business. You'll always have the opportunity to go legitimately in any direction you want to go into, having to prove you're the best person for that opportunity, but knowing specifically how to do that. We are a very transparent organization, meaning we will tell you from month one exactly how to get to that next promotion. Then once you get promoted, that's the very day we're going to tell you how to get to that next promotion, all based on your performance. So it's all very, very real. So what does that mean in practicum? Let me tell you about my story. I went to the finest university in the country, the University of Illinois. So I'm smarter than you are. No, in all seriousness, I was a marketing major at Illinois. And I don't know, since all of you are mute, who's a marketing major or not, but I'm going to insult a couple of you. Marketing is not a real major. It's for people that like business, you like people, you didn't want to do accounting or finance. What do? I do marketing. For me, school was never the thing. I could cram the night before the test or, whatever, and get an A or a B, and it was fine. But at Illinois, I played rugby all 4 years. I was part of a fraternity all 4 years. And the things that I felt passionate about evoked emotion out of me that I wanted to see in my career. So when I went to my spring semester junior year career fair in the summer or the spring of 1999, so all of you were a twinkle in somebody's eye at that point, I'm sure, I was looking for something. Didn't know what, I was just looking for something. So for those of you that have attended career fairs before, it's an intimidating environment with many different organizations. And I talked to a lot of them. Some companies I liked, some companies I didn't like. Enterprise was never on my list because, let's be honest, who goes to college thinking, let's go rent cars for the rest of our lives? But a friend of a friend told me about them, and I talked to him at the career fair because why not? And I enjoyed the conversation, so I threw them on my list as a backup company. As I went through the interview process with a lot of different firms, what I noticed and what a lot of people notice is that a lot of companies say pretty close to the same thing, that a lot of their positions are some sort of hybrid model of management, marketing, and customer service and sales and some other variables. Some companies I liked, some companies I didn't like, but every single person I spoke to at Enterprise, while they were saying close to the same thing, they said it in a way that made me believe that they believed what they were talking about. They had a certain amount of ownership and empowerment behind their voice. It wasn't necessarily Enterprise rent-a-car to them. It was Lauren rent-a-car, it was Marisol rent-a-car, it was Bob rent-a-car, and that was intriguing to me. Where someone that didn't know what they wanted to do, I was attracted to the way in which they spoke. So I chose the internship, which is the same as the management training program, just abbreviated, still thinking, I'll get a real job after graduation. Probably from about the end of my first month in, I knew it was a place for me long-term, because for me, in not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, in actuality, I figured out very quickly, I wanted to do everything. I didn't want to be departmentalized or pigeonholed into just one specific aspect of business. I'll be blunt with you. I'm a competitive, aggressive son of a gun. I like to be the best at what I do, and to have the ability to literally lay my hands on every single variable within the equation, the things that I knew, the things that I didn't know, things I didn't even know existed in terms of running a business, and get to participate in all these different variables in the equation was awesome to me. And in doing these different things, I saw results very, very quickly. When I see results, it drives me to do more. I did more, I saw more results, and it kind of snowballed for me. Additionally, I was with people that were just like myself. They were diverse in culture and background, but they were the same in terms of personality. They were aggressive, driven individuals. You put a lot of these people together in the same room each and every day. It's just like every team or organization you've been in. You're going to have fun with these people. You're going to fight with these people. You're going to go out after hours with these people. And that was it for me. I fell in love. So I came back to work full time post-graduation. In the first couple of years of my career, it was that. It was about grinding each and every day, seeing some incremental gains in my skill set, in my paycheck, in my title. And I found my voice. I found my skills. I started to figure out where I could be most effective in my career. I kind of proved myself in the mainframe of the business. I had some success, and I gained the opportunity to move into the corporate side of business in what was called recruiting and is now called talent management. In the last 17 or so years, this is what I have been doing. What is ironic about me in my career is that I chose enterprise for more than any other reason because I didn't want to departmentalize myself. And yet today, that is exactly what I've done. But the big difference is this: I've never felt like I work in one department. I do one thing for the organization. I still feel like I control my organization, that I guide the direction of my company. I just do it through my voice. I do it through my expertise. And that's why I'm still here. I don't care about the car rental industry. Enterprise could be selling apples on the street. That doesn't matter to me. It's about the way in which we run the business that I've always been attracted to and I've always been able to sell. You've all learned about mission statements in the past. An enterprise's mission statement that we just don't post on a wall and then forget about it. We have a 5-point mission statement that we live and breathe each and every day. The first 2 points of our mission statement talk about taking care of our customers. You provide them with an exceptional product and exceptional customer service, making sure they're 100% satisfied walking out the doors. The third and fourth points of our mission statement talk about taking care of our employees. You train and develop your employees and give them the opportunity to grow for themselves. And the fifth point says, if you do these first 4 things, growth and profitability will follow. Now, we have more than just an idle line, growth and profitability. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I want money just like everybody else. But we understand in order to gain quantifiably, you got to take care of the people in the equation first. We're an imperfect company. We make mistakes each and every day, but I truly do believe that is the perfect equation. That is the perfect business model. And that's why I do what I do today. That is why 20 plus years after I graduated from college, I am the only one of my friends still with my first company, because I was very, very lucky and found the right fit for me. So that is who we are. That is who I am. That is why I'm here. I'm now going to open it up to you, as opposed to just have some half-hour diatribe and soliloquy on everything enterprise. I want to know what you want to know about my company, about me, about really anything you want to talk about. The rest of the time is yours. Go.
Has it been especially challenging, especially during COVID? And has it just been like so much harder or so much easier? Like, no, probably not easier, but just like, is it even difficult, or is it just something new that's really hard to grasp?
The answer is yes. So it's a great question, and I'll probably give you a longer answer than what you wanted. To preface this, I have been through, in my 20 plus years, I have been through 9/11 within my organization. I have been through the recession of 08, which was significant. And now I've been through this, and this is a magnitude of at least 10 times greater than those things combined. This has been something that nobody can be prepared for. Enterprise is a behemoth in our industry. We're about, like I think I said before, 4.5 times the size of anybody else. And in a giant storm, the big trees will lose a few leaves. The smaller trees will get knocked on their ass. It's as simple as that. And we've lost more than just a few leaves. When this thing hit, for those of you that are sports inclined, when Rudy Gobert announced he had COVID, and the first NBA game was canceled. But about 3 weeks before Easter is when the really start to show itself. We realized this was going to be something. About 3 weeks in, so right around the time of Easter, Enterprise probably hit its low point. We had lost about 75% of our business. Now, we understood that long-term everything was going to be fine, but long-term was going to be longer than what anyone initially expected. So, we battened down the hatches. We kind of took a look at ourselves and figured out what would be best for our organization. Our largest competitive advantage at Enterprise is not any singular business strategy, is that we're a privately held firm. We don't answer to a stock price. We don't answer to shareholders. We answer to ourselves and what's in the best long-term interest of the organization. Not necessarily just today, not necessarily 5 years from now, but 15 years from now. And we took a look at ourselves and thought about what things were going to look like when everything started to bounce back. And we didn't know when things were going to bounce back. So we took a very bold step right around Easter time. We had a bunch of technological advancements and some both hardware and software that we're going to be integrating in our business over the next 3 to 5 years. We're a company with more than 10,000 locations. Like I said, more than 100,000 employees. So these large advances, they're very, very financially burdensome. And we essentially just decided to rip the Band-Aid off and said, listen, if we're going to be a new world, which, you know, we are still becoming, let's not wait to become it. Let's not be a reactive company. Let's be an agent for change. Let's be a reason that other companies change around us. So we invested a lot of money very, very quickly into some resources to put forward these technological software and hardware changes as quickly as humanly possible to better our business, to better the interactions we have with our customers, to ensure the safety of our customers and our organization, so that when things start to turn around, we can kind of hit the ground running, and in turn kind of increase our competitive advantage. So that's what we did. A lot of these advances allow us to, well, let me take a step back. From the end of March up until relatively late in July, we didn't have a single customer enter one of our enterprise branch locations. All of our business was done outside. It sounds, you know, reactionary, but that was in the best interest of the environment. There were so many variables within the equation. So how do I want to say this? What did we do in order to make that situation as good as humanly possible? We invested a lot into our website and the power behind our website to make sure that our customers could take care of a lot of the process from home. When they needed to rent a vehicle, a lot of the information, a lot of the due diligence was done on the back end, so that when they entered our physical location, or at least our parking lots, we can get it done quickly. A few swipes of a screen and it was done. We equipped all of our employees with essentially handheld technology. So we're talking about 100,000 different pieces of handheld technology to make sure they could interact without having to do anything more than just get within a few feet of our customers. Here's our screen, and be done with it. And then a lot of other types of things that I won't go into today. But we looked at this not necessarily as an opportunity, but as a new challenge, as things will continuously challenge our organization. My company, when I stepped into it, was 45 years old. Today we're 43 years old. Today we're 63 years old. We've changed 4 or 5 different times in a way, and we will continuously change. But our core will remain the same. We take care of people. We take care of customers. We take care of our employees in order to effectively operate the business. So yeah, it's been challenging. It's been a game of whack-a-mole. You know, something pops up, we attack it, and then 3 other things pop up. We have been imperfect. We have made mistakes, and we learn from them, and we will make mistakes. The last 7 months has been tremendously challenging. The next year or 2 will still be challenging, not as challenging in what it has been, but still challenging in a way. But we will lean into challenges as opposed to react. So that's a long-winded answer to a simple question. What other questions can I answer?
Hi. So first of all, I would like to apologize for not having my camera on. I came down with a huge migraine before this, and it's dark in my room. I figured, okay, they're gonna see a dark screen anyway, so
Okay.
I just want to apologize for that.
All good.
It's okay, Lauren. I'm sorry you have a headache.
No, it's fine. But I actually had a question. So I have, like, back at home, I have like a small business where I make and sell bath bombs, just kind of locally, just so I can have some extra pocket money.
Absolutely.
But my mom and I really want to not necessarily like start a huge whole company, but like kind of expand. But we're like worried about the risk. What kinds of risks were you worried about when you first joined your company?
Well, that's a great question. I was most worried about making a mistake. Let me be clear. I was very proud of being in the College of Business at the University of Illinois, as you should be getting your degree from Eastern. And you know what your school gives you is a platform to launch yourself from. They line up organizations for you. They train and develop you to start your career in really whatever direction you want to start within. The day that you graduate, those resources, they don't stop, but they become very limited. As opposed to companies lining up to talk to you, you have to line up to talk to companies. You become one of the huddled mass. And I didn't want to make a mistake and take a wrong step to start. That was my biggest fear. Now, I'll be honest with you, I got very lucky. I didn't know I didn't know 95% of what I know right now. But what I can tell you is this. You may find your forever company the first time around. To be honest with you, you probably won't. But your company has to lead you somewhere else. It has to be the company that leads to the company that leads to the company. Don't go and find a job. a job is a waste of time. All of you have had jobs in high school and or college, and there's nothing wrong with having a job. A job pays some bills. It's fine. It gives you some experience. But the day you graduate is the day you're looking for a career, and a career is something that is meaningful. It provides you with opportunity. It does provide you with financial gain. It provides you with the means to give yourself success personally, professionally, financially. So maybe you know what you want to do in 5 years, in 10 years. Maybe you don't, but every day you need to be looking for it, and find a company that leads you towards direction, that gives you an avenue to find what you want to do. That's why I chose enterprise, because I just wanted to expand myself. And I was lucky enough that it gave me an opportunity to expand. That was my biggest fear. If you have entrepreneurial dreams, and you want to launch something on a large scale and you have the financial means to do it, absolutely do it. But if you have entrepreneurial dreams, but you're not looking to do it on a large scale right now, then find an opportunity that's going to give you that experience that may allow you to do that in 5 or 15 or 35 years, whenever it's going to be for you. If you enjoy the business you have right now, great. Take a hard look at yourself. Do you have organizational skill? Do you have sales ability? Do you have marketing ability? And if the answer is yes to all those things, you might be lying to yourself, because I don't think anyone has that at any point in their life. But if you find holes in your game, find a place that's going to help you fill those holes. That where, as I talked about before, you can lean in the challenges and help fill in those holes so that you can become what you want to be. I thought in my 20s that life would eventually become easier, that eventually it was just going to be, happily and merrily strolling throughout each and every day. And what I'm going to tell you as I'm sitting here 42 years old, it never becomes easier. But what you do gain are the skills and tools to help deal with the complexities of life each and every day. And life does get more complex. I'm sure John will agree with me there. It gets more complex. Professional and personal situations get more complex. But the more and more tools you gain, the more of a repertoire of skills you have to deal with those complexities. And in a way, it becomes easier. So find a way to constantly improve, to constantly learn, to constantly push yourself. Complacency is the devil. And don't fall into that trap. Thank you. What else can I answer for you?
I have another question, actually. What would you say is like the biggest advantage and disadvantage of being in an entrepreneurial, like in a big business,
In a large company? I am a big fan of large organizations, because unless you have a very finite plan of what you want to do with the rest of your life, a small company doesn't allow you to find out what you don't know. In a large company, in a lot of cases, it does. So the biggest benefit of working for a large organization is it allows you the room to spread your wings. It allows you the opportunity to test yourself. Like I said before, in the things that you know and don't know and don't even know you need to know. It's easy to do the things that you're good at. And we all enjoy things that we're good at. It is much more challenging to learn new things and become good at them, but it's not impossible. It is extremely difficult to do the things that you're not good at, to take those weaknesses and turn them into strengths. Oftentimes in a small organizations, you are in a tiny pocket, you're in a bubble, and you're not going to have the opportunity to truly test yourself in those different areas. In a large organization, you're going to have the latitude and the ability to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm over here, but I want to do this, or I want to test myself in these areas. It's a big benefit. The biggest hindrance in working for a large organization is that it probably takes a little bit more to stand out from the crowd. It takes a little bit more time to rise and become what you want to be. So patience is certainly a virtue in that regard. You can still be aggressive. You can still be competitive. You can still want to do it quicker than everybody else. But understanding that while it may not happen tomorrow or the next day, you're still the one that drives your fate. But it does take some time. There will be times in your career in a large organization, regardless of which organization it's with, where you're going to be told no. You're going to be told there are people, maybe some companies are based on seniority, and they're going to say this other person is first in line. Enterprise is a merit-based organization, but every single person in my organization, including our president and CEO, has been told at one point or another, no, you're not the best person for this opportunity. But then what you can hope for is that they're going to tell you why. They're going to tell you what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you need to do to get to where you want to be. So that's challenging for some. That is a hindrance for some. For me, it's just another opportunity. It's another hurdle for me to go over. So hopefully I've answered your question. What else can I answer for you?
I'll go ahead and add something. So I'm a PR major, and we talk a lot all the time about the importance of creating, mutually beneficial relationships. So I
Absolutely.
just wanted to know, in your field, how do you go about just finding clients or just generally people who will kind of support your vision and your image for things and just attribute, to the success of your company?
Are you talking about in the rental car industry or just overall in professionalism as a whole?
In your industry.
Okay, so without giving you an entire history of the rental car industry, because most of you have a life and don't want to have dark thoughts. The rental car industry is different than what a lot of people understand it to be. I think a lot of people think about renting cars when they hop off an airplane, when they want to travel to Nashville over the weekend with their friends. But that travel industry, that retail industry, if you will, only represents about 20% of the entire rental market. A vast majority of the rental marketplace stems from something called the insurance replacement industry. That means when people lose their vehicles, they have an accident, their car breaks down, stolen, hail damage during a storm, they need to have another vehicle. Regardless of economic factors, regardless of anything else, I've got to get to work. My kids got to get to school. I need a car. So over the years, we have built relationships with essentially every single player in our industry that supplies business, every single dealership, insurance agent, body shop, some large corporations with some business need, to make sure there is a pipeline of customers flowing at us each and every day. So just for example, in the Chicagoland area, we have about 200 enterprise branch locations. If you take an branch in any suburb and draw a 3-mile radius around that branch location, that branch is responsible for all the accounts in that area. So every single employee at enterprise, not just the manager, not just a certain level of management, every single employee will market to our accounts at least once a week and develop the relationships that are already established. At this point in our life, we know everybody and they know us. But in order to gain a dealership or a body shop's most valuable commodity, which is their customers, they need to have a trust in us. And each of these companies has different hot buttons. They have different needs. Some of these organizations want a very technically oriented relationship. Some want a financially oriented relationship. Some of our accounts just want to go golfing once a month. They want to be recognized. They want to get out of the house. Being the leader in our industry, we can essentially beat anything to anybody, in terms of products or resources or price points. We can't be beat in any way, but only through very open lines of communication and very real marketing skills do we know exactly how to be anything to anybody. So we're constantly marketing to our accounts, keeping these lines of communication open. Then we're granted access to their customers. If we fully satisfy their customers, we have a mutually beneficial 3-way relationship. Now, here's the kicker. We're in the auto industry, just like those of you that have worked in the food service industry before. It doesn't go perfectly. You can try as hard as you can. There are things that are going to happen. In our industry, cars are going to break. Customers come in sometimes not happy. There are going to be blips on the screen. If you have strong relationships with your business partners, when things don't go perfectly, they remain blips on the screen that you work past. If you don't have strong relationships, so those blips on a screen become problematic, and then they have the ability to have reason to go to one of our competitors. Now, within our industry, and fortunately for us, we don't have a lot of competition out there in a majority of the marketplaces. Our industry is one where you can't have a relative small market share and be profitable. So we have destroyed our competition by doing the things that we're good at and focusing on ourselves, and in turn, they can't compete with us. But we continue to do that. Now, how do we do that? We do it by staying true to our values, staying true to the way in which we hire people. We hire each and every person in enterprise as an entry-level manager, but we don't hire people to be a management trainee. We don't hire people to be a future manager. We hire people to be a future leader of the organization. Now, for each and every one of you, I don't know what that means for you. You don't know what that means for you, and that's okay. But we're going to figure that out together. But that is our stated intent. So from minute one, we're going to train and treat and develop you as a future leader, empower you as a future leader. And when you have ownership in your environment, you have the ability to control your career. You treat it a little bit differently. So it's not just what we do, it's the way in which we execute it. And that's with empowerment and decision-making ability. So that's that. I'll answer that question in one other way, and it kind of goes back to what I've learned in my business as a talent manager. I work with a lot of great colleges and universities across the state, across the Midwest, and I work with John a lot. And we have two different goals. My goal is to identify, hire, and train the future leaders of my company. John is to help students develop into whatever they can be. And yet we have a lot of, mutual interests. We have a lot of ways that we can align our goals together and help benefit each other. So ultimately, it's about aligning your skills or your goals with your company's goals. and finding a way that you both can achieve things at the same time. And if you can do that, wherever you're going to go in your career, you're going to be in great shape.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm very smart. I've told you already. Just ask me. What else can I answer for you? Good question so far.
Bob, I have one. I know this is from when you and I talked earlier in the summer. You mentioned when you first start or during the pandemic, everything changed.
Mm-hmm.
You as a recruiter, it's your job to recruit people for the company.
Sure.
When this all first started, and even as it worked its way into the summer and got worse, your recruiting responsibilities had to dry up.
Oh yeah, we
so share with our audience some of the things that you did as that were unusual for your role.
Okay. Just to give you a little bit of kind of my place, I am a kind of a low-level executive in my organization, for lack of a better term. So I get to be in all the important meetings that guide the direction of the company. I just don't say much in those meetings. When this thing hit, about a week later, we knew that business was going to slow significantly, and we made some decisions that we've never made before. We did stop hiring for a few months. We didn't hire for 3 months, from the end of March through the end of June. We've never turned off that faucet before, because everyone needs to start entry level. We need to continuously have that pipeline of candidates walking through the door. We couldn't do it. So we closed the doors for 3 months. We canceled our internship program, which we have a renowned internship program, which we are very proud of, which I was part of. It was heartbreaking to call intern candidates and say that we just can't do it this summer. I think most people understood, because it was the world. So what do I do? As someone that finds talent, recruits them, that eliminated essentially 100% of my day-to-day responsibilities. But as I've told you, I don't consider myself someone that just does a job within the organization. I consider myself, and am considered, a leader within the organization. Our business needs changed dramatically. So the first thing I did once we shut down that pipeline is I raised my hand and say, what can I do? What can I do to help the business? Can I step into an enterprise branch location and rent cars to customers? I don't know how to do that anymore, but I'm happy to do it. Just teach me. But no, we have some bigger fish to fry. Just to give you one example, in the Chicagoland area, it runs a fleet of about 40,000 rental vehicles. And it's a relatively arbitrary number to you, but it's a lot of cars. And at any given time, we have about 90 to 93% of them on the road. So you're talking about 36 to 37,000 of those 40,000 cars are on the road, rented by our customers. So that leaves about 3,500 cars, let's say, amongst those 200 enterprise branch locations. Do the math, every branch has between 10 to 20 cars physically on their parking lot. Like I said, our business dried very, very quickly. We lost about 75% of our business for a short amount of time, meaning we had 30,000 vehicles not on rent to our customers. Physically, we did not have a place to put them in any way, shape, or form. If you drive it past an enterprise branch location in your local neighborhood, you're not going to see a parking lot that can fit more than 20 cars. So what could we do? It became a overwhelming problem that we had never dealt with before. We had never dealt with anything like this. Logistically, it was a nightmare. So what did we do? We quickly pivoted. We started to lean upon our relationships with other businesses that could help us with our problem. Enterprise is the title sponsor for the NHL. We talked to the United Center and said, listen, we need help. Can we use some of your parking spots? The United Center essentially said, listen, we're not using anything at this point. Nothing's going on. You can have lot A and lot B. So if you drove by the United Center from roughly the end of March through the end of May, you saw 2 full parking lots of enterprise vehicles. And I'm not talking about we used every single parking spot. We parked these cars bumper to bumper, door to door, all throughout the parking spots. I called upon every single college that I had a relationship with in the Chicagoland area, explaining our problem. And they said, we appreciate that. You can have this amount of spots, 200 spots, 500 spots to physically put our cars. So in about a week and a half time, we found places for these 30,000 vehicles, and then we had to physically move them. So we were taking every single, person like me, every single department head or person that runs a division of the organization. And for about 3 weeks, we were physically moving vehicles. I make a good salary. I had a lot of responsibility in my organization. Didn't matter. Had to move cars. Getting in cars at 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, doing whatever needed to be done because it needed to be done, because it's my business. In order to optimize the performance of my business, we needed to get things done. And then business started to bounce back and the responsibilities started to change, and we helped facilitate other logistical type of needs. There were some areas that bounced back a little bit quicker than others. Northwest Indiana was maintained a relative book of business, while the north and west suburbs of Chicago were gutted. So it was about, reshaping and reforming some of our business models and moving cars in certain areas. And that's just one example. June hit, and I think it was June, maybe in late May, but June hit. And then you had a lot of the social injustice protests, the Breonna Taylor, the George Floyd tragedies. And there was some rioting in the city, in the suburbs. And we had some branches that were torn up a little bit on a Saturday and Sunday. So Monday morning, 6 o'clock, I got on the phone with my operations manager saying, what needs to be done? Let's do it. So by 8 o'clock Monday morning, I was at a branch at 26th and Michigan Avenue, and I was cleaning up glass. I was cleaning up bent metal bars. It was whatever it took to help our business, not just survive. I don't think survival was ever on our mind necessarily, but to do what we could, to better our business, to allow more, to help the communities in which we do business in. We're not just someone that's trying to take and take and take. We're trying to give back at the same time. So it was whatever it took for about 3 months, and then things bounce back and you slowly get back into form. But it was eye-opening. And in a very odd way, it was invigorating. It was invigorating to be part of something from the ground level again. This tremendously large organization, it was nothing for a minute. And to help build it back up, to help, kind of make decisions on the fly, to create programs that hadn't even been thought of a week ago. And it was stressful at times, and it was fun at times, and it continues to be stressful and fun at the same times. And I think it's indicative of the way I feel about my organization. I love it. And for those of you that are looking for something out there, it doesn't have to be my company, but find something you love, and it doesn't necessarily become a job all the time. It becomes just an exciting puzzle that you have to figure out. So it's, again, long-winded answer because that's what I do. While I'm speaking, if you guys want to open the chat, I'm going to put my information in the chat. And just give me a second here. If I can spell correctly. If there's any questions you have personally, if you want to send me a resume, don't hesitate to forward it to me, shoot me a message, or not. Your call, but consider me a resource. Are there any other questions that I can answer out there for you about my company or otherwise? I'm happy to answer anything.
If after this session is over, you guys reconsider, or you do want to get in touch with Bob and you don't have his information, just let me know in Career Services and I'll put you in touch with him. Anybody have any other questions? I'm sorry, Bob.
No, go ahead. All right, simply, we are actively in search of management trainees again. We will be full bore. We are actively full bore and will be full summer of 2021, actively looking for interns. So if you do have interest and want to schedule a time to talk to me about the company individually, please let me know.
Okay. Well, Bob, if there aren't any other questions, I want to tell you thanks again for taking the time tonight after your full day and answering questions and at least demonstrating what I think is really important for students to know as they get ready to go into the workforce. And that is, you do whatever it takes to succeed, not just what your job description is. And I really appreciate that. You demonstrate it, you live it, and you certainly talk it too. So I appreciate your transparency and your honesty. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Everybody unmute your mics. We're going to give Bob a golf clap to send him on his way and have him have a good night. Okay, golf clap. Bob, thanks a lot. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I appreciate everything that you've done and all the advice that you've given and everything that you've given to Eastern. You're a real asset for our university.